I Hate Politics is a podcast about a human activity we love to hate. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. A couple of weeks ago, we brought you an explainer on how GIS, Geographic Information Systems, has changed local governance. In our quest to bring you local government explainers, this week, what happens when you don't pay your property taxes? Even though property taxes are local, state law governs in Maryland. If you don't pay your property taxes on time, state law requires counties to sell that debt the following year rather than try to collect it themselves. Interesting choice, you might say. To help us understand this rather arcane part of municipal finance, I asked Montgomery County's finance director, Micahel, to join me. Stay with us.
I Hate Politics is brought to you by UMBC's Political Science Program, where you'll learn to shape public policy, impact communities, and function at the center of modern society. Learn more at shadygrove.umbc.edu.
I Hate Politics is a podcast about our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools and streets, and our local governments as they function in diverse and democratic societies. This means our politics are messy, dirty, sometimes corrupt, with often self-serving politicians. But no matter how much we may hate politics, we are never exempt from it, even when we refuse to participate. In fact, the purpose of politics is to keep society moving, precisely when we don't agree with each other, like now. Music for this episode comes from Silver Spring rock and roll musician and writer Jon Brayton, who performs under the band name Myster Treefrog. These songs are from his latest album, Poke. Before we get into my conversation with our guest, Montgomery County Finance Director Micahel, some basic taxation facts. In Maryland, property taxes are paid on real property, that is, land and buildings. There is a separate category called business personal property, which is plant and machinery owned by businesses and is taxed separately. How much tax we pay is calculated by multiplying the assessed value of a property with the tax rate. The tax rate is set by county and city councils, but the property assessments come from the state, from an agency called State Department of Assessment and Taxation. Maryland is among a handful of states where assessments are statewide, not by counties. A third of all real property is assessed each year, which means that your property is reassessed on a 3-year cycle. Micahel, welcome to I Hate Politics.
Good morning.
You are the finance director for Montgomery County, and you are organizing the annual tax sale. Can you explain what a tax sale is?
Tax sale is a day every June, the first Monday of June, this year, June 10th, where the liens on all of the unpaid property tax bills are collected on one day. The tax sale is prompted by, it's caused by the fact that not everybody pays their full tax bill or possibly any part of their tax bill by the two different due dates that we have, September 30th and December 31st every year. And whatever is left unpaid constitutes a lien on the property under Maryland law. And Maryland law also requires that county governments provide a tax sale every year in order to recoup all those unpaid taxes. A lot of people think that the homes are for sale or the buildings are for sale, but this is just the tax lien that is being sold to bidders.
just to be clear, so you sell the debt that you are owed by a property owner,
That's right.
and then it becomes the responsibility and the right of whoever buys that debt to go collect. Is that
That's
correct?
that's exactly correct. There's a couple of different terms that happen, a couple of different time periods that you have to be aware of if your property tax lien was sold at tax sale. For the first 4 months after the tax sale date, which is again that first Monday in June every year, the owner of the property, they have 4 months to pay off the bidder, the winning bidder. We call them the certificate holder. All they have to pay is what the certificate holder paid at tax sale, which is the taxes and the penalties and interest. And then they pay also penalties and interest amount from the date of the tax sale until they actually pay off the lien. The second time period is 6 months, and that's 6 months from the county handing over the certificate of the lien to the winning bidder. The certificate holder can't start foreclosure proceedings.
On June 10th this year, how many liens are up?
Right. So today there's about 1,900 liens available, but by tax sale date, it'll probably be 900 to 1,200. It averages around 1,200 a year.
Okay. And of the 1,200 that are sold, how many are actually foreclosed?
I have to sign off on them when they are foreclosed. Of course, foreclosure is finalized when the courts actually foreclose the right of redemption is the technical term. Right. And once that is done, then it comes back to us, and then we have to sign a new title and everything. And so historically, maybe 3 or 4 properties a year eventually are foreclosed on. But since the pandemic, and during the pandemic, except for the 1 year where we didn't have a tax sale actually, but during the pandemic and since then, it's been between 5 and a dozen a year. Still, it's not a lot.
Most of those, then, the property owners simply come back and pay it?
What we see is overwhelmingly the property owners do end up paying whatever they owe. If they have a mortgage on their property and they don't have the wherewithal to do this, their mortgage company might end up actually paying those taxes and penalties and interest.
Say I underpay my tax bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a rank order to which you will apply my payment? So it goes to the ad valorem tax first, and then to the solid waste, and then to water quality protection? What is that rank order?
There is no rank order. It is proportional. So you might think that the real property tax would take precedence over everything else, but it doesn't really under Maryland law. So if you paid everything except for 5%, which might be your solid waste fees because you're protesting solid waste fees or something like that, then you go to tax sale because your real property tax would be not 100% paid. But even more than that, under Maryland law, under this tax sale law, anything that is allowed to be on the tax bill takes equal priority. In the last, 5 or 10 years, some jurisdictions, some counties, cities in Maryland have asked the Maryland General Assembly to not allow, sewer and water fees to be part of the tax sale process. I think they were successful in doing that. Our sewer and water fees are not on the tax bill, so that's not really an issue in Montgomery County, but it really has been an issue in a really large wonderful city in Maryland and in a couple of other places as well that I'm aware of. And so it does beg the question, should it be for just ad valorem taxes? It also begs the question, should only ad valorem taxes be on the real property tax bill? I mean, you can make an argument either way.
So, say my property tax bill is $4,500, which is, I think, pretty standard in Montgomery County. And I paid the September bill, and I did not pay the December bill for whatever reason, right? So, by the time the tax sale comes around, early June, what is the interest on that? What extra amount will be added to?
Per month, it's 1 2/3%. That adds up to 20% a year. Part of that is interest, which was set many, many years ago, and part of it is a penalty, which was also set many, many years ago. These haven't changed. I've been with the county for almost 32 years. They've been the same the entire time I've been here.
That's amazing. So there is no difference between interest and penalty, right? Those are the same things.
Technically not under Maryland law. The interest is you can sometimes waive penalties under some circumstances. The interest, you're sort of required under Maryland law to collect that.
What circumstances are you going to waive penalty?
Very few circumstances. I honestly, we have not done that in years. I know that it had been done in the past, maybe once or twice.
You have 1,200 properties go on tax sale, the liens on them. Maybe a dozen actually foreclose. What you are contracting out essentially is the collection process. Do homeowners, residents come complaining to government that the private collection folks use means that are perhaps unsavory?
We honestly don't get a tremendous number of them. I mean, we're in the end, like you said, we take roughly 1,200 accounts to tax sale or accounts liens to tax sale. And we do get mostly people call to ask about what's going to happen and everything. And so we have excellent staff in our Treasury division. Our Treasury division does the billing, and they do the collecting, for all the local taxes.
Who buys receivables?
Well, a lot of people buy them. We have historically in 1999, the Maryland General Assembly actually changed the tax sale law and allowed local governments, typically only counties do tax sales in Maryland, to group properties or put properties in groups and bid out the groups. And Montgomery County took advantage of it. So we've been actually grouping all of the different accounts into roughly equal size groups every year. And that's actually done through our tax system, actually. And it groups them so that there's a similar number of accounts in each group and a similar assessed value for the properties in each group. And so we've been bidding them that way for years. But and honestly, if you look at our tax sale information page on the web, you can see this. Group bids are actually preferred under the law. But we do have quite a few individual bidders. When I say individual bidders, I mean people who bid on individual properties, not on groups at all. That is absolutely permissible. And some years we don't sell a group. The people who bid on the accounts that are within that group that didn't sell, they all bid on those properties or those accounts, and somebody will win them if they bid on them.
If you did geographical grouping, do you believe that would lead to preferences based on neighborhoods that institutional bidders would then say, I want this in Potomac, but not in Burtonsville?
I think that if you group them under any rubric at all, I think that would be likely to happen. I think having it be as random as you can possibly make it is the fairest way to generate groups that are equally moderate, if you will. You don't want half your groups to have properties that everybody wants to bid on and half your groups to have properties that nobody wants to bid on. So,
but I assume the price will adjust.
Well, the bid price would adjust.
Yeah, and so what does it matter?
What matters is the groups that nobody wants, nobody will bid on, and individual bidders, the people who bid on individual accounts or individual properties with liens on them, they're not going to bid on them either. The whole reason for doing that is to have a one-day tax sale that is concise, if you will. It's efficient and it's effective. You sell all of the liens all at one time in 20 or so groups, and you collect all your tax money by 5 o'clock the next day through electronic fund transfers, and then you just start generating the certificates for the tax sale buyers. The buyers are the actual winning bidders. It's far more efficient to do it this way, as long as your groups don't have any real outliers in them on the negative side.
All right. I accept you don't want to be left holding the properties that are not going to yield you back. However, the question I'd ask is, do you think if allowing geographical or other kinds of grouping would increase your revenue? So even if you're left holding some properties not sold, that the properties that did sell actually make up. I'm curious how that calculation happens.
When you're bidding on something, you're assuming that the owner of the something that you're bidding on will make more money as you bid up. That is not the case here at all. Quite the contrary. At tax sale, all you take in is what was due this year on June 10th of 2024. That would be the tax that was overdue and the penalties and interest that are through June 10th of 2024, and that's it. When we under Maryland law, we also have to charge a high bid premium to the bidders. The bidders pay that high bid premium when they pay us the taxes and the penalties and interest. The only part that we typically keep is the tax that was due and the penalties and interest that were due to the county. That's it. The high bid premium we set aside, we hold on to it, and the county only keeps the high bid premium if the winning bidder, if you will, fails to foreclose on the tax lien within 2 years. Last year, we sold tax liens of $4.9 million. We collected, in addition to that $4.9 million, we collected high bid premium of $14 million, which we're just holding until we give it back to the certificate holder or the winning bidder, assuming that they do what they're supposed to do. If the owner redeems the property and so they pay off the winning bidder, then the high bid premium goes back to the certificate holder, the winning bidder. And the only circumstances under which the certificate holder or winning bidder does not get their high bid premium back is if they fail to do anything at all. And they're not going to do that. They're going to lose a lot of money doing that. Other than once, I don't recall keeping a high bid premium in the time that I actually ran Treasury and that I've been director. I've been either one of those for 11 years now.
So what is the economics of this for the people that are bidding?
June 10th is the sale date. On June 11th, they start collecting 20% per year the next day. So for the first 4 months, the only thing they're allowed to charge the owner is 20% per annum interest. So they have to annualize the interest. So, it's 1 2/3% a month. They're collecting that on a group that has, $50 million or $100 million worth of properties in it. That's a lot of interest every month. So for 4 months, that's all they can collect. After 4 months, they can also start charging the owner legal fees and postage and copying fees and other relatively minor things. Those add up. The legal fees can add up to some money, but there's a cap on those as well. But the real money is in them collecting that 20% until the owner redeems, or for the entire period. If they end up going to foreclosure, they don't get anything from the owner, but they foreclose on the property, and then they would own the property. Again, only a very small number of properties get foreclosed on every year.
So is that 20% for 4 months enough money? Does it even cover their interest cost for the hybrid premium that they are giving you? I'm wondering.
Well, I mean, you're right to wonder about it. Yet the same individuals, the same institutionals bid every year. There's a relatively stable group of institutional investors who do this every year. They've always felt that it was a good group, was worth bidding on. And they don't bid, their high bid premium is where they're discounting the quality of each group that they're bidding on. Typically, these institutions...
Oh, so they are discounting for quality. That's what I was asking.
They're looking at the return on investment that they think they're going to receive from that particular set of properties in that one group. And they're bidding a bid factor that takes into consideration how high quality they think that group really would be. And typically, some of these institutional investors bid on more than half, and every once in a while, almost all of the groups. So, but they bid a different bid factor. Their bid is a different proportion for each one of them. You can look at the bids by the institutional bidders, and you can see if everybody agreed on each group. And the answer is no, they don't agree on each.
Yeah, no, I would imagine they would not.
But typically, if there are groups that appear to be much higher quality to the bidders, you will notice that in the bids, right?
That's fascinating. And the bid data is never released out into public, so we can't do that kind of analysis.
This one, I don't think we've ever even talked about publishing it. It's not something that I don't think it's anything that we couldn't publish. We'd have to look into that too. I'm not sure if that would be a protected piece of information under Maryland law. It might be.
The one thing we did not talk about is actually commercial property.
Yeah, commercial properties are part of this. It's not just homes. It's any real property at all. And the fact of the matter is, commercial properties, big commercial properties would probably rarely get sold at tax sale. If they had no value, they would probably go to tax sale. There isn't a lot of that. There's not a lot of that anywhere in Maryland, I don't think. There are properties that have relatively little value that where an owner might not pay their taxes because it will never be sold at tax sale. Literally, they'll go to tax sale and nobody will ever buy. They'll never bid on it because the fees outweigh any value they'll get back. The bidders would get back.
But perhaps even more initially, if your tax assessment is based on income and you don't have income, I'm not sure there's any tax to be levied.
Commercial properties typically are valued based on their stream of income. So although that's not the only way they are they are assessed. If the owners don't provide the stream of income information, then the State Department of Assessments and Taxation has comparable properties to fall back on.
A big part of the problem of Class C retail and office space has to do with a lot of the mortgages are paid and they're just waiting for capital appreciation.
Yeah, that is definitely part of it. Yes. The first couple of years of the recession, we overestimated the negative impact of the lack of people being in commercial office space for a couple of years. And we closely monitor the appeals that are over $2 million. That the $2 million is the $2 million of assessed value, not the $2 million in tax. And they're not showing anything dire at this point in time. Although we still keep building in because we're not sure when everybody's going to be back most of the time. And as leases come off and everything, then there's going to be more churn in that particular sector. But keep in mind also that office buildings in Montgomery County are 7 or 8% of the assessable base. We're not Washington, D.C., and we're not even Fairfax County, where Tyson's and some of their commercial areas are a much larger proportion of their real property or their real estate tax base than they are here in Montgomery County. Montgomery County historically has been more residential than commercial, a lot more residential than commercial, and that has stayed true over time. One of the big differences between Maryland and Virginia is Maryland assesses you every third year and phases in any increase over the 3-year assessment cycle, and doesn't phase in an assessment decrease at all. It's day one. So if your house went from $500,000 to $400,000 in your next assessment, in the first and second and third year of your next cycle, it would be $400,000. If it went from 500 to 600, it would go 533, 566, 600. I'm rounding a little bit.
So slow up, fast down.
Yeah, but Virginia, every year you're assessed. So changes in the market show up 3 times as quickly. I don't know if that math works, but they show up every year in Virginia, but they're delayed in Maryland. The downside is delayed and the upside is delayed too, because when property values are really going through the roof and you just got reassessed, you're sitting there thinking, I should sell my house in 3 years. I'll make a ton of money and I won't care about my next tax bill. I mean, that's the way people think, especially people who are ladder buyers, where they buy a starter house and then they have a plan to buy an upgraded house and then a plan to upgrade until they hit that $6 million, 10,000 square foot mansion in Columbia or Potomac or something.
Mike Coveyou, thank you for explaining the tax sale.
Thank you for having me.
That's Mike Coveyou, Finance Director for Montgomery County. You're listening to I Hate Politics. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. I'll be back with lessons from our conversation. What lessons should we draw from my conversation with Montgomery County Finance Director Micahel Coveyou? First, it is really interesting how quickly the local government gets out of the debt collection business. The last thing they want is to hold resident debt and be the entity who calls to collect. The government offloads unpleasant tasks faster than you can say unpleasant. Look at the genesis of the Federal Drug Administration, the Federal Aviation Authority, and several other agencies. At the local government level, collecting taxes is among the most unpleasant tasks. Most people have now become conditioned to pay their taxes. For most residents with mortgages, their lenders collect money in escrow to pay the property taxes on their due dates. The transaction is increasingly invisible. But when a taxpayer defaults, there is the unpleasant thing to do. Second, the rate of foreclosure on properties with tax liens is unbelievably low. I did some digging around after my interview with Coveyou. I have hypotheses, nothing definite. One possible reason for the really low foreclosure rate is that home prices in the county have been going through the roof for a long time. Homeowners are probably able to sell their properties on their own, pay off their mortgage and their tax liens, and still walk away with a significant portion of the asset appreciation. Also, it is possible that since mortgage companies have early warning on coming defaults, they move early as well to take control of the asset rather than allow it to go into tax foreclosure. Coveyou pointed out in passing that mortgage companies and affiliated entities buy a lot of the tax liens themselves. Third, for me, at least, the business model of the lien buyers is confounding. The buyers of the lien debt charge homeowners 20% annualized interest and penalties for 4 months. Then they get to charge some more. By the 6th month, they can begin foreclosure proceedings, which usually takes 2 years to complete. The longer they hold the lien, the more money they make. But foreclosure rate is so low that it is hard to imagine that they make very much money at all. I can't imagine lien debt investors are happy with truly low rates of return on investment. But Coveyou says that the county always sells all the liens. So I'm clearly missing something. If you have an answer for me, please reach out at producer@ihbpod.org. Fourth, toward the end of the conversation, Coveyou brings up 2 quite important facts. One, that commercial property assessment in Montgomery County is 7 or 8% of the total assessed value of all real property in the county. And Montgomery County may be different from DC and Fairfax in this regard. The second, the office space crisis in Montgomery County is muted. We don't generally think of the county's development problem in this way. Lastly, municipal finance is hardly the top line of politics today, and perhaps because of that. To normalize politics as an everyday and an inescapable act, think about government not just as grandstanding and big emotions, but the humdrum of a finance department bureaucrat running tax lien sales as they have year after year, and that money going to fund schools, roads, and safety. That's all for this episode of I Hate Politics, where we aim to stem the decline in local news by working with community voices. Don't forget to tune in to our Tuesday morning news analyses. I Hate Politics is produced by me, Sunil Dasgupta, and assistant producer, Adama Gay, with support from University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I direct UMBC's political science program at the universities at Shady Grove in Montgomery County, where, among other things, we explore and learn about politics, government, and society close to home. Music for this episode comes from Silver Spring rock and roll musician and writer Jon Brayton, who performs under the band name Myster Treefrog. The songs come from his latest album, Poke. If you want to share your music on the show or know someone else who might want to, please email us at producer@ihbpod.org. I hope you'll subscribe, share, and rate the podcast as we bring you stories about politics close to you and to your home. See you next time.
Go drop that guy. Now take it safely to your TV.